Should we do stretches before we do this?
You can if you want.
Hello, welcome to this week's riveting episode of Fit for FIFO. My name's Marco.
And I'm Jason. And this week we're interviewing Marco. Firstly, I'd just like to say if you're not following us on YouTube, subscribe. Please subscribe, that'll really help us. Instagram also. As I said, we're talking to Marco this week. His background in FIFO is quite extensive. Prior to that, he was working in the Air Force.
Yeah.
So you're a supervisor in FIFO?
Superintendent in FIFO, and I got up to the rank of sergeant in the military, so looking after people there as well. Mm-hmm. So basically been involved in man management and looking after people or wiping their ass, whatever you want to call it,
yep.
Since 1992.
Right. And how long ago, are you retired now from it? Or?
Yeah, I stopped working in 2015, became a single parent, and obviously I can't let someone else bring up my son, so I need to be home. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I still do some small shutdown work if it's required, or just to keep the brain in the game.
Yep.
I'm a little bit too young to be playing air guitar and Guitar Hero and PlayStation all day long.
Yeah. Cool. Firstly, I reckon we just crack a beer, and back to Marco, introducing Marco. So I've got this new segment that I started on the last episode, and it's about getting to know the character, who is yourself today, guest, and it's called Stalk Book.
Stalk Book?
So I've got some photos of you. I've gone onto your Facebook.
Right.
And got a few photos, and they're not really, I was trying to find some embarrassing ones. I couldn't really find anything really embarrassing, but I just thought these ones would explain a little bit about you and your background. So this one here, I'll just put it up on the thing, so you don't need to show the thing. But yeah, just this one here, and then there's another one. Just wanted to see what the story is behind these.
Right. So this one here, they had a problem with an aircraft on deployments one time, and we were actually not at work. It was my time off, and they needed someone to come in and fix a flight control problem.
Yep.
And I think we came straight out of the Penrith RSL,
yep.
And I think we were all a bit drunk at the time, and
right.
And they had to do a flight, and the supervisor at the time became sick, and we were doing night shift. They called us in on day shift to fix an aircraft, and my clothes were in the washing machine, my uniform. That's why I'm wearing civilian clothes.
Right, fair enough. But more to the point, I suppose, the aircraft. So you worked in the Air Force. What is it that you actually did?
I was an instrument fitter. I started my career as an instrument fitter in the Air Force, and then in their infinite wisdom, they thought they'd amalgamate the instrument, radio and electrical trades to make avionics. It's a little bit like the dual trade cross-dressing electrical instrument thing we've got going on now.
Did you find many similarities, like changing industries, going from working for the military into FIFO?
It's very, very funny you mention that, Jason, because I tried to do that. I mean, obviously the technology in an F-111 aircraft is pretty intense. And I had a couple of telephone interviews to get jobs in the mining industry, and someone chastised me and said, well, you don't know anything about control valves. Well, fair enough, I never even knew what a control valve was, and I Googled it. Well, it's got nothing in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody convinced me that, or someone convinced the right people that I should maybe get a start, and that's.
Yep.
And then I found out what a control valve was. Big green thing, you belt it, it goes up and down.
Yep.
And from there, that's how my career started. That was at Roxby Downs in the uranium mine.
Right. And what about in terms of the lifestyle? Is it very similar, do you think, or is it very different?
No, because we used to stay in five-star hotels in Vegas and in the Air Force, or we went to Japan, or we go to Malaysia. Right. And we stay in nice places, and obviously FIFO camps we all know what they are, tin sheds. Yep. But look, it is what it is. It's just something to get used to. You can't really expect people to build purpose-built camps for people in the middle of nowhere when you're only going to be there for 2 or 3 weeks and then go somewhere else.
Yeah, like talking construction, I suppose.
Exactly right. Well, a lot of the big mines have got shutdown camps as well. They're just like an annex on the side of the main building, of the main camp, that they use just for shutdown personnel.
Yeah. All right, back to Stalk Book.
Stalk Book.
All right, so second, so that was the first 2 photos.
That's an F-111 cockpit.
Now the next one, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Now this one, what's going on there, mate? I hope this isn't on the job site.
No, that's that drum over there you can see in the background there. I put that in the backyard and I burn all my leaves.
Right.
Because I live with a lot of trees around my house, within 3 months I'd have 3 inches of leaves on my roof, and I've got to rake them off.
Okay.
and I raked them into a pile and I started a fire in my backyard.
Oh, good. So
Yeah.
so it's nothing on the job.
Yes, it's not a bomb or anything.
Yeah, I noticed.
Oh, fuck.
I noticed you didn't have a hard hat on, so yeah, it's good you're not on site. Right,
Yes.
so what's going on here?
Oh, yeah, that's a bloody hell. You have gone back. That's 1993. I decided that I'd ride a motorcycle from the Gold Coast, or from Ipswich to the northern tip of the Australian continent.
Yeah.
On a Honda Dominator
Yeah.
NX650 Thumper,
Right.
which I did. And I met this Asian guy, and he had his whole motorcycle full of shit. Like he almost had a barbecue strapped to it. And I told him he's got to get rid of some of that stuff. And yeah, he didn't even have any spare oil or spare tyres or oil
Really?
or anything.
So you took him under your wing.
Yeah, I met him in Mackay, and people don't understand, from here to Cape York is 3,500 k's one way.
Right.
I met him at Mackay, which is about halfway.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
He's
yeah.
underprepared, was he?
Yes.
Severely.
I noticed he's got a kidney belt on though, so he's all good with that.
Yeah, and he's got his looks like a martial arts shirt on. The first thing I thought when I saw this was Street Fighter.
Street Fighter.
You're like the I don't know, the military dude, and this is like Mr. Miyagi.
Can I tell you a funny story quickly about him? His name was Yukiya Chuzitu, whatever.
Yeah.
He loved to have a shower or a bath in a hand basin. Because obviously we're travelling at Cape York. I used to just finish riding for the day and go and sleep under a tree. He decided he needed to be clean. So I went for a pee, and here he is, got his feet in the hand basin, and then I turned around, he's got his arse in the sink, trying to wash himself in a sink, in a tiny little roadhouse up at Banniger somewhere in North Queensland.
Yeah, yeah.
Hilarious. I said, don't worry about showering. He goes, no, I've got to be clean.
Oh, good on him. Cool. So now let's get into why I brought you on the show. So in previous episodes, we've had workers on FIFO, like from FIFO, different trades and whatnot, and I actually worked with Marco on a project, and we got chatting, and he offered to do an interview, which was, I think, it's a great opportunity to have a chat to someone who's had been in supervisor's role, superintendent, all these different roles he's I suppose experienced, and I thought it was a good opportunity to have a chat to him and find out about, I suppose, the different pressures and the things that people don't really ever think about, you know, and dig a little bit deeper into what you do and the challenges that you face in your role. So,
Yeah.
do you want to start? Just give us a bit of a background on sort of what you do and I suppose things that people don't really expect.
Sure. Well, because I'm getting a bit older, I just wrote some points down here, and I've got to have my glasses on. But what I wanted to bring up is that every supervisor is different, and they put different importances on different things. A lot of people are driven by KPIs, which is job progression type goals. For me personally, I value the wellness of the workers and the safety of the workers tenfold above anything else. So every morning, when I was working over in WA and Barrow Island especially, because it's such an abrasive environment to work in, I made sure that I used to always start the pre-starts with, is everybody okay? And I used to make eye contact with everyone in the crew, just to make sure that their head was in the game, because some people would be staring into space and everything. And after the pre-start, I'd go and talk to them and say, look, you know, obviously your concentration isn't there. Is there anything you want to tell us? You know, I don't want to probe into their personal life, but at the end of the day, well, you need to still do that. So in the military, we had to also coach people's wives on why their husbands had to be deployed to places all over the world at 2 hours' notice. Well, that's just what you do. So one thing I didn't agree with was the whole window seat, what do you call that? The whole window seat attitude. You know, you make a mistake, you get a window seat. So for anyone that's new in the industry...
Fear tactics.
Yeah, fear tactics, that's exactly right. Window seat means you're fired. So here's some young bloke, he's really excited, he's pumped, he's got his first job, he rocks up there, meets all the management, and then they're talking about, if you do this, you got a window seat, if you do that, you got a window seat, if you do this, you got a window seat. So the poor bloke, he doesn't even want to actually pick up a tool in case he inadvertently makes a human error, which we all do. So one other thing we had to do as well is learn people's strengths and weaknesses and employ them accordingly, because obviously no one knows everything.
Yep.
So trying to fit people into crews where they could be exposed to, well, I was an instrumentation supervisor and superintendent, so as Jason knows, he does the same thing. Well, our job encompasses many different things within a massive plant. So you don't want people thrown into the deep end because it does things for their self-esteem. So you want to try and you really want to try and nurture people's morale. That's one of the things that I really think is important.
Yep. I suppose one thing that as a supervisor, you must, I suppose, everyone expects that you're to put on a brave face all the time, you know, because I suppose if their leader or supervisor or whatever is struggling and having problems, they might, you know, not feel confident in what they're doing or the team as a whole. So how do you deal with that, like yourself? Like when you obviously you're like normal, you're human, you have problems, you have issues and stuff. How do you manage to continue like to do things, and what do you basically do to manage that?
Well, that's true. It's as a superintendent or supervisor, or even we were on the tool. We were all on the tools once, and we understand what the pressures are. That's a good question. And no, you don't want to show any weakness to the blokes. But if we have a problem ourselves, then we've got a chain of command that we need to follow. So we bring it up with upper management, but we don't let our subordinates know what it is that we're doing. So but a lot of times we used to get dissatisfaction talking to our management because, you know, a lot of the management people were institutionalised. They're in the industry that long. They didn't really give a fuck about anyone. And I found that disheartening. So that's one of the reasons I quit my job at Barrow, because of the small-mindedness of management. And, you know, did I answer your question?
No. Talking about yourself. How do you deal yourself when you've got a problem on the job? And then, are we talking a personal problem? Exactly, yeah. Like, you know, you got problems, and you've got a whole team you need to lead.
Oh no. Well, I needed to. As a supervisor, we were able to use telephones and shit, even though it was a telephone-free site. And if I had a problem at home, which I did have, you know, my son had epilepsy at the time, having fits in the shower, and my wife at the time ringing me, "What do I do?" Okay. And it was a big thing, you know, it was a big deal. And I can't just go and fly home. It's 24 hours to get home. Yeah. It's taxing, but you just got to. Well, I don't know how you deal with it, mate. You don't become hard through it. You still suffer just as much as the next bloke. Yeah. But you just got to soldier on, man. Yeah, that's exactly right. But what it does do, because of those things affected me personally, I tended to be a lot more sensitive to other people's needs, and I could really feel for them. And I made a lot of people's lives happy by making the impossible happen, by flying them home if they got a problem. Right. HR didn't want to do it. I'm going, well, what? Because there's been a lot of fatalities in FIFO. Yep. Home stresses of people have, you know, done themselves in, and I keep bringing that up. Yeah. And
be brutally honest with them.
Well, I do. I say to them, look, this guy's got a problem. He needs to fly home. If he doesn't, I'm holding you accountable. Right. And as soon as you say that, they've got to do something. Okay. Yeah. Even me myself, my son had epilepsy. I needed to fly him at one time as well, and they flew me home. Right. Yeah. So we're all human beings at the end of the day. Yeah. No one's better than anyone else.
Right. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Being a supervisor, tell us, is there any an experience you've had? What's the hardest experience you've had to? Oh,
that's a very easy one to answer, Jason. It's having to fire people. It's not something I like doing. The hardest thing ever was at Barrow Island. I caught one guy on a cell phone. Now, cell phones were meant to be left in the camp or on the boat. I lived on the cruise ship Europa, which was docked at Barrow, and 1,500 of us lived on that. And the first instinct, it's like anything, when you fall over in public or you're drunk or you shit yourself, the first thing you do is, who else saw it? No one else around. Make a split decision, put that phone away, put it in your bag, I never saw it. But on other occasions there's been things where I've had pressure on me by upper management to fire people, and it's not a good thing. One story happened, can I mention it?
What do you need to mention?
All about terminating somebody.
Yeah, I suppose, like...
No, well, I had to terminate someone, but I was in a carpool with him, and it was his turn to drive, and I had to fire him. Yeah, right. So I had the termination letter ready to give him, and when he dropped me off at my house, I gave it to him. Oh, God. That was terrible. Yeah, but they're there.
But I suppose it's almost like being a traffic inspector, parking inspector. Can you imagine that job? Like, every single day, you're like...
upsetting people.
Wrecking people's day. Yeah. Wouldn't be good, would it? So also, so you've been married a few times?
Yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah. And how has FIFO affected your marriages, like in positive and negative ways? Anything?
Well, there's nothing positive about it at all. The only positive thing about it is the influx of money. But while I did fly in, fly out, well, in the military you don't really do fly in, fly out. Well, you suppose you do fly in, fly out. But you just become... what happens is you become institutionalised, living in a box by yourself in your room, and then when you get home and you're surrounded by your loved ones, you can feel a little bit crowded, and you're not used to that, and you become a little bit distant from your own family. That's one thing I did notice. And my first marriage ended because of that, because one particular day I was in Las Vegas with the Air Force, living the life, having a great time, and the next day I'm home watching Home and Away with my family, and I just couldn't. I suppose I was immature back then. This is 20 years ago. So I walked out of that marriage because I wasn't, the white picket fence kind of guy. The second marriage, well, that was a different story, but that had nothing to do with FIFO. But
yeah, but it puts a lot of pressure on.
Oh, it does, you know. Like I had to read stories to my son over the phone, and
right.
you know, my wife at the time, then she wasn't my son's mother, so you know there was always that, you know, my mum type thing, and then I'd have to get involved and say, look, you know, Will, you need to do what Jasmine says, blah blah blah. But she was a champion, and we're still friends to this day. So
okay, that's good. I suppose. It sounds like without actually being in a marriage, I mean, I've had relationships through FIFO, though my initial thought is like for someone to go into FIFO, you know, a lot of people are going to do it regardless, no matter what anyone else says, which is fair enough, but I think to survive it is to create a plan amongst you and your partner, or your wife, and it being very transparent, and both of you is like, right, this is the deal, and have like almost checkpoints where like after a year, you talk to each other and say, hey, what do you reckon, continue or not? I suppose and be transparent about it.
That's a fantastic idea. A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, and I suppose on top of that, both of you have like an agreement that, and I've heard this a few times, and I've actually, a few of the interviews, people have actually brought this up, and I thought it was a great idea, was that both of you have a get out clause, like if one of you is struggling, then it's like, right, it's time to finish it, we're done, just go back to your normal life, you know. But in saying that, this is like, we're talking, for me, I'm not sure about you, but from my experience, a lot of it's been construction, so it's like pretty heavy rosters compared to like these maintenance jobs where they're doing even time, 7 days on, 7 days off. I think that is something that people probably do their whole life, but that's my opinion, but I suppose everyone's different. I don't know what you think about it.
Even time rosters are great, but look, any work that takes you away from your family, it doesn't matter how cruisy the job is, you're still not there.
Yeah, right.
When your child takes his first walk, or when your kid's having a bad dream and just wants a cuddle from daddy.
Right.
You know, and sometimes cuddles work well with children. You know, so I've got 3 kids, and my first 2 grew up with me being in the military, and my 14-year-old now, he was 1 month old when I started FIFO, and he was 12 when I finished. So
yeah, something that I've thought about, and from what guys I've worked with have said, children don't. A lot of them, from under a certain age, they don't understand why mum or dad's not there, do they? It's just like they're not there, that's it. They're not like, oh, dad's away making money so I can go to a nice private school or have a good life.
Well, it's the same as airline pilots' children. They're never home either.
Right, yeah. So I suppose, without having children myself, that's the only sort of guess I can say about it. With the effect. I'm
very, very lucky that my children never equated my FIFO work to money. It was never about that.
Right.
It was about dad's not here.
Okay, yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, it's sort of a shame, yeah.
I mean, I started off my career doing power station shutdowns, a bit like yourself, or turbines or whatever. It was only ever 2 or 3 weeks here and there. And in between that, I was in the Downer office. I worked for Downer Engineering on a 6.5-week shutdown, and that ended up lasting 9.5 years. I became the superintendent, and I looked for jobs and did business development, did many things. Worked in Australia, New Guinea and New Zealand. So it was good. It was a good thing, you know, but then when I started getting to the major projects and getting on these brutal rosters, I fell apart, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really admire people who do 3 and 4 years on 28 and 7.
Yeah. 4 weeks on, 1 week off.
Yeah. I mean, you got to know. A lot of people want to buy more and more toys. You know, you need to base everything that you want to buy on long-term commitments. On what happens if I lose my job and I need to go to a 38-hour week in town. Yep. That's what you need to. That's what you need to base your borrowing capacity on, not on your FIFO wage, because nothing is guaranteed in life.
Yep, of course.
You know, I mean, me, myself, I was on leave, I was on holidays, and then I got a phone call from my last job and said, look, you've been made redundant, we're giving you 4 weeks notice. And I thought, well, that's cool, you know. But I was told I was only going to get 3 months there, and I got 6.
Yeah. And so how many years did you say you were in FIFO again, sir?
12.
12 years.
Yeah.
And how many times has that happened to you, being away on swing and you've been given your redundancy?
Once.
Just once?
Yeah.
Okay. And how about unplanned redundancy, like being on a job where, you know, we've got 12 months on this project when you start, and then like 2 months down the track, it's like, see you later?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, Jason. I never, ever did any of those. I never did short jobs the whole 12 years. It was just 2 weeks here, 3 weeks there. Even upstream jobs. You work upstream?
Yeah.
You work upstream?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, that was a 3-in-1 roster. I don't ever do 3 swings, and that's the end of it. The job would finish.
Okay. Right.
Because that's how because I was doing business development, I'd go and talk to Santos, I'd go talk to you know, all the other major players, and find out from them their requirements, and then I'd have to put together, well, how long is it going to take to do the job? And it'd only be like 3 months, and that was great. There was never any of this forever.
Yeah.
So,
12 years, yeah.
you know, sometimes I'd have to go to MacArthur River in the Northern Territory. I only ever did 2 jobs in Western Australia. So that was enough for me. You know, I don't really like working over there.
Yeah. I never actually went west, I really did, but...
Yeah, most of my jobs are in Queensland.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now, what do you do now?
I do nothing. I started blogging. I've started a travel blog, www.tiredasstraveller.com. Check that shit out. It's good. It's how to travel around the world for fuck all.
Nice. And so you're retired or semi-retired? Do you do any projects or?
No, I don't do anything anymore. Because I'm a full-time father, I don't really want to palm my son off onto other people.
Right.
I have done a couple of small jobs, power stations in Mount Isa. I've got a couple of friends that own their own instrumentation companies, and they might need someone for 2 or 3 weeks or something. I go and do that.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. Right. And what's in store? So how old are you, Mark?
I'm 55.
55.
Yeah, I stopped working when I was 52.
52. And what's the plan for the future now?
Well, my plan is to just to keep cruising as a single parent. My passion is travelling, so I'm virtually in and out of airports all the time, taking my son with me, as you've seen on social media, and but that's got to have to stop now for a while. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I thought about maybe doing, I don't know, people always ask me, go do a degree in something, you know, go to university. I'm really not inclined.
Yeah. So I suppose that's quite 52 to be able to be in a position where you can your own choices of whether you want to work or not, or study or travel and stuff. That's pretty. Well, would you say attribute that to doing FIFO, like being able to set yourself up, or? Well,
this house got paid for mortgage free through FIFO, and I get looked after pretty well through my military pension.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I get paid that till the day I die.
Okay.
So that's, I mean, we're not talking big money, but it's enough to pay my bills up here in the mountain where I live, and.
So just a mixture of your whole life, I suppose.
Yeah, I try to mix around. I'm trying to take on a bit of a holistic lifestyle now too. I used to drink a lot of beer and smoke and be really unhealthy and fat, and now I'm just not so fat. I don't smoke, but I still drink just as much.
Yeah, cool.
I do miss the fight. Look, FIFO is like an adrenaline thing. You do your first swing, it's all exciting, new people, new airports, but within 2 swings, it's the same shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the same fucking camp.
Yeah. Well, and what's your highlights of FIFO? Tell us, what's the thing that stands out in your mind, which you enjoyed the most, or?
Well, I'd have to say working with blokes like yourself. The last job I worked at Curtis Island, that was probably my career highlight. I worked with some really good people. Obviously as a supervisor, you have to. I found I didn't have to spoon feed anyone, and I was able to connect with a lot of people on a social level as well. After hours, having a couple of drinks with them, and that was a bit of a highlight.
Yep.
A couple of other things that I really enjoyed was working in Lahir Gold up in New Guinea. That was a good experience, having New Guinean nationals working with us, and they showed us some of their villages and some of their culture. That was good. And then I did a job in New Plymouth, New Zealand. Worked in a methanol plant for 6 weeks. That was fantastic. Working there and looking out over the snow-capped mountains, it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. So I suppose to summarise that, from what I'm hearing, it's just the people you work with.
Well, people make the job, mate. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. You could be working in the best place in the world. If you're working with people that you don't really get on with, or people that are abrasive, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Hence why I left Barrow Island.
Cool. All right. Let's throw this Facebook thing on, Just see if we get any people want to ask some live questions. It looks like we're live now. I think it might show us when people log on. We'll wait. We'll give it a few minutes. We'll leave it and just continue with these few final questions. So I just wanted you've spent a bit of time over in Thailand, I suppose.
Yeah, so I particularly love the Land of Smiles. We were going to talk about these, weren't we?
Oh yeah, we can do that, exactly,
Yeah. Land of Smiles is what Thailand's called, and I like to embrace myself in the whole Buddhist culture, and I went and did some Thai cooking classes while I was there. Went and got a Thai driver's license, love it, man. I just can't get enough of Thailand. Right. So that's where I'm going to end up.
So FIFO workers, and is it a big community over there? Like, is there guys that fly in and out of Thailand doing jobs? Or?
Yeah, I've got a couple of mates that live in Udon Thani that do fly in, fly out. They're working in Darwin, flying from Darwin straight to Thailand. That's a lot closer. I suppose it depends on where you're geographically located in Australia, because you need to be able to get connecting flights. If you have to spend planes, trains and automobile kind of thing just to get to work, it sort of takes away the value of living overseas and doing FIFO. But a lot of people go to Bali in their week off or whatever,
Yeah. and living over there. Yeah.
Well, not necessarily living, but that's where they go on their 7 days off.
Yeah.
A lot of people doing FIFO don't actually need to maintain a residence either, because you can work away for 4 weeks living in a camp and then go and spend your week off somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's good. We'll finish it up. But anyway, I just got a T-shirt for you, mate.
Excellent.
The first one to receive one of the Fit for FIFO.
Excellent.
Badge.
Check this out. It's even big enough to fit my fat ass. Check that out. Thank you, Jason, man. It's been really sensational talking with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. And yeah, it was really good to
catch up.
I
haven't seen you for 3 years.
I know. Well, yeah, it's gone quick, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.